Welcome to the Teachers Impact Podcast, or better yet known as The Tip, where teachers can come to master their craft, use their voice, and enhance student learning. On this episode, we'll be talking about how to deal with a lack of student progress. So there may be times when you're thinking, no matter what I do, these students are not moving. So I have some great tips for you on this episode, so please stay tuned. The first thing when dealing with a lack of student progress is to have self-compassion and reflection. Self-compassion meaning don't beat yourself up. You're trying your best, and acknowledge that this happens to the best of teachers that it has happened to veteran teachers, new teachers, mid-career teachers. It's happened to the best of us. So when I say reflect, I mean reflect on your current practices. So you need to think about, okay, what is working? Despite the fact that you think that nothing is working, something is working. There is one positive in the quote unquote negative. So when you figure out what's working, then you're going to think about what makes these strategies effective? What makes it that they work? Okay, then you're going to consider how you can improve or expand on these strategies. So, for example, if you have a classroom where you're realizing that there's a math concept and it's a problem solving math topic, okay? No one is getting it no matter what you do, okay? So, first thing is to find what's working. Do you have some students that may understand a part of it or some of it? Do they understand, okay, how to start the problem? That's a positive. Then you're going to think about, okay, what makes it effective? What are you doing that some of the students understand a part of it? Is it a strategy where you're doing peer work, or is it where you're doing direct instruction and you're breaking down the first part of the problem? Okay, there's something that's working. So when you find that thing that is working, then you're going to transfer it to the whole class. Okay, so if you find that students are understand a part of the problem and you know that you've broken down that part of the problem, so what you're going to do, you're going to take the whole class and you're going to break down the rest of the problem. Okay, so you're taking what's working and you're applying it, you're expanding on that strategy to make sure that the students can understand the concept that you're trying to teach. Not only can you expand the strategies, you also have to think about how you can improve those strategies that are working well. What can you do next to improve that strategy of students breaking down the problem? How can you expand on it? How can you improve it? Okay? The the next thing to do is to analyze and adjust your instruction. So when you see that a student or student is not making progress, you have to think, okay, you have to evaluate what is missing, okay? Is the student missing instructional time? Are they being removed from the classroom at the time when you're explaining certain concept, when you're doing direct instruction for whole group instruction, or they're being pulled out for put or they're being pulled out during small group instruction? Okay, you can adjust the schedule if needed to make sure that the student is receiving the instruction they're supposed to receive at the time. You can have a conversation with the person who's pulling that child out, okay? It may also be an attendance issue. It may also be that the student is, always leaving to go to the bathroom. So finding out what the student is missing and then adjusting at the same time. So once you do this, then you're going to think, okay, what's not working? Okay, are there skill deficits that needs to be addressed with that student who's not making progress, a lot of times this is the case. The student does not have the prerequisite skill to master the concept that you're trying to teach. One of the things that you can do is to identify the most basic form of content that aligns with whatever you're teaching. So, for example, if you're teaching addition and subtraction up to 20, the beginning step of that would be able to recognize the number. The beginning step would be able to understand what is a plus. The beginning step would be able to add basic facts up to 5. So if you go back to that basic form of that concept, then the student will have a better chance of really connecting to what you're trying to teach them and understand what you're trying to teach them. So, one of the things that I found when I was working with my small groups this year, there were times when the students were just not getting it. And I had to just take a step back, give myself some compassion, and say, okay, what can I do? Go back to the most basic form of that content. So once I had a small group of students that I saw, for example, I'll give a reading example. They were just not able to blend words. There was nothing that I was doing for them to know how to blend words. So I thought, okay, before blending words, what is the basic concept that students need to know before they blend words? They have to be able to break the word apart. Okay, another thing that I saw my students struggling with is they always have an issue with sounding out words. Why do they have an issue with sounding out words? What's the concept that comes before that? They have to be able to break the word up into the phonemes or the individual sounds. So I had to go back to and give more practice with breaking words into individual phonemes. Once I did that, I saw my students start to progress. The next thing of how to deal with a lack of student progress is to involve the parents. And I know we hear this all the time: communicate with the parents, involve the parents. It's almost like a broken record, but it does have its benefits. And these are some steps that I would suggest that you use, and I've used in the past that has worked for me and I continue to use. I meet with the parents. I have an actual meeting where the parent has to come in and I speak to them. I discuss my concerns. Okay. And when I'm discussing my concerns, I'm showing the parent what the standard is that the student should be meeting at the grade level. And most of the time, the parents, they're surprised that this is what their first grader should be doing. And they're noticing that their student is not nowhere, their child is nowhere near that standard. So once the parent is able to understand this, then you have a partner. So you can suggest simple activities that they can do at home. And when I say simple, I mean very simple, because parents these days are very busy and we have to be understanding of that fact. You have parents who are more willing to do more work with their students, and you have some parents that it's not possible for them to do this. So simple activities that they can do at home to help the student to move forward. Some parents will gladly, implement or take advice to what you're asking them to do. Some parents, they're a little bit slower to do it. Okay, if they're slower to do it, or if they don't do it at all, then we come up with other strategies. As teachers, that's what we do. So after you've met with the parent, you've shared their concerns, you see that they've attempted to, try to help their students, try to help their children. One of the things that we forget is to follow up. So if you see that the parent is working with that child and that child is actually improving, I usually send a message to the parent saying, oh, I see such and such, he's doing so much better, or she's doing so much better. Thank you so much for working with me. Okay, so that follow-up is just as crucial as the first conversation. And then you can adjust strategies as needed. So You can maybe give some additional activities that the parent can try. Once you follow up, and the other part of following up, if the parent is not, is not doing what you're asking them to do, saying, I noticed that, your child, they're still at this level. What else can we do? How can I partner with you to make sure that they're progressing? It may be, the parent saying something as making sure that, asking their child, how did they do today? Did they complete their work assignment? So that parent involvement is so important when you want your students to move if they're not showing progress. The last but not least is providing some one on one support. Okay, as teachers, I know it's very hard, and I've done things in the past to give my students that one on one time because they just really need it. I find pockets of time, maybe 2 to 3 minutes or 5 minutes, where I know I can just get that quick time to, help that child, get a glimmer of hope and understanding a certain content. Okay, this is what I've done in the past. Am I suggesting that you do? But sometimes I'll take 5 minutes of my prep time to just sit down with a kid to work on something. 5 minutes, maybe 2 to 3 minutes, even to sit down with that child. And it helps them, first of all, they feel special that they're getting that individualized attention. Second of all, it helps them to be a little bit more confident because they have that one-on-one time to say, oh, this is what I'm missing, or this is how I say this word. It when you have that one-on-one time, it makes the understanding and the click. You can get it in a shorter period of time if you're working with them one-on-one, as compared if you're working with students in small group and whole group. It's going to take that child who's not progressing, it's going to take them longer to get that understanding, to get that click. But if you're working with them individually, the understanding time, or that time when it clicks for them, decreases. So I talked about, this is what I do. Am I suggesting that you do that? No. Sometimes I'll take maybe 2 to 3 minutes or 5 minutes of my prep time. Sometimes we're a one-to-one school, so sometimes during computer time, I will pull a student just to work with them on their iReady because they need that individual time. Sometimes they don't understand what's going on in iReady, so I have to pull them. Third strategy, sometimes with permission of the special teachers, when they go to art or when they go to music, I'll speak with the teacher and I'll speak with that teacher. I just need a couple minutes with this child, and they'll give me the okay. So that's when I will take the child, pull them for 5-10 minutes to work on something. So for example, I had a student this year, he came in very low with reading, and I just really wanted to move him because I saw that he had the potential. I'd spoken with the parent, she was working with him, and he was coming along, but he still needed just a little bit more push. So once I got permission from the special teachers, I just pulled that child for 10 minutes, whatever skill that they need to work on, very quickly work with them on it, and then send them back to their specials class. And what I noticed was that he made such an improvement. He not only met his typical growth, but he met his stretch growth for iReady. So those are just some quick examples of how I find time to work with students one-on-one. Just taking that 5 minutes is important, to help to push those students to get them where they need to be. As some districts, you may or may not be allowed to, depending on your district rules, find the time or find what's best that's going to work within your district. Okay, so some key takeaways from this episode. If you notice that students are not progressing, first step is to give yourself grace and compassion, reflect on what's working and not working, involve the parents, and try to see if you can provide some one-on-one support, and try some of these strategies, especially the adjusting and the analyzing, to see what's working, not working, and then adjusting as you go. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to check out the website. Please share and rate on your favorite podcast app. It helps the show to grow, reach more teachers, and have an impact. You can email me at teachersimpacteducation@gmail.com or follow me on Instagram at Teachers Impact Podcast. Happy learning and growing.